Elden Ring has a very rich and complex weapon system. This is due in part to the large amount of experience that FromSoft has obtained throughout their game developing career, but also, specifically, because Elden Ring provides players with the Ash of War system. This system allows players to put different techniques on many different weapons. It also allows us to infuse weapons with different damage types and damage scaling possibilities. We will be focusing on the damage scaling aspect of the system, and to this effect, I am sure that you, my dear viewer, already know that we can infuse weapons down the heavy, keen, quality, magic, fire, flame art, lightning, sacred, poison, blood, cold, and occult paths. Each path has its own effects and provides our weapons with different scaling options so that we can have the opportunity of using our favorite armaments no matter what build type we decide to run. In this video, we will be focusing on a single path. Specifically, we will focus on the Occult infusion. The reason why occult weapons will take our full attention is because there is a rare type of scaling that this path gives to certain weapons. That's right, there are a handful of weapons that get a special type of scaling when infused down the occult path, and this gives them an edge when it comes to build diversity and power. And so, my dear viewer, the objective is clear. I want to show you what this special scaling is, the weapons that have it, and how we can use it to improve our characters. There is quite a bit of information to go through, so please, prepare yourself, and let's get started. Our starting point is the basic effect of the occult infusion. Generally speaking, when you infuse a weapon down the occult path, it gives your armament full physical damage and a high level of arcane scaling. In exchange, the weapon's damage scaling with strength and dexterity will be drastically reduced. Most of the time, the arcane scaling is a B scaling, but some weapons can go as high as an A scaling. Since the occult path gives the weapon arcane scaling, if the armament in question has an innate poison or bleed passive effect, its status application will be increased by this arcane stat as well. So far, this is how the occult infusion works normally, and you can clearly see it through this occult claymore. Now, there are a series of weapons that receives a specific scaling when infused down this same occult path. Please, take a look at this occult great mace. Much like the claymore, you will see that all of its damage is of the physical type, and much like the claymore, you will notice that it has a high arcane scaling, represented with a B scaling. But I am sure that you also notice that the occult great mace also benefits from a B scaling in strength. This is not the standard, and it is an extremely beneficial condition. This is what I like to call quality occult. Much like the quality infusion, which gives armaments a high amount of scaling in both strength and dexterity, there are a few weapons in the game that can take advantage of this quality occult situation, in which they get a high level of both strength and arcane scaling. This results in great synergy for strength arcane builds, and it provides a large amount of damage that takes advantage of these two stats. But, like I said before, only a handful of weapons have the privilege of this quality occult scaling, so we need to understand which weapons these are and why exactly they benefit from this very rare and very beneficial damage condition. Let's focus our attention on this chart. The weapons that take advantage of this special occult scaling are the Great Mace, as we saw before, and also the Warped Axe, the Club, the Large Club, the Brick Hammer, the Giant Crusher, and the Prelate's Crozier. No other weapon has this special quality occult scaling. So now we ask the obvious question. Why is it that only these 7 specific weapons have this special scaling when infused down the occult path? Honestly, I do not know the answer. That being said, there are similarities within these weapons that allows us to make an educated approximation. After we take a look at the armaments, it is evident that they are all pure strength weapons. By this, I mean that all of these weapons have no dexterity scaling and no dexterity stat investment is required. Of course, there is an exception to this rule, and that is the Prelate's Crozier. While this weapon does not require a dexterity stat investment, it does indeed have a very basic dexterity scaling of E scaling. That said, it still takes advantage of the special quality occult condition. We can say that this is the exception that confirms the rule. If you are using a Strength Arcane build, it is of absolute importance to remember these weapons and their special occult scaling capabilities, because the amount of damage that we can get while using these weapons is considerable, and it can rival the amount of damage that other specialized builds can do. This is definitely a situation that you, as a player, want to keep an eye on. Now that you know about this special occult scaling and how it works, I am sure that you have noticed that, like we mentioned before, it only works on pure strength weapons. My dear viewer, I believe that you are a smart player, and because of this, I am sure that you are asking a very important question. Wouldn't we get more damage from these weapons by simply running a specialized 80 strength build? This is a fantastic question, and the answer is yes. That being said, while the specialized 80 strength build might get us more AR, there is a lot of benefit that we can obtain from running a Strength Arcane hybrid. On your screen, I have been showing you another chart. Here, I am comparing the 7 weapons that we mentioned before under 2 circumstances: a pure strength build and a Strength Arcane build. Here, you can see the differences in AR that both of these options offer. You will notice that running a pure strength build will always give us more damage, but you will also notice that the difference in damage is not as important as we would think. In the worst of cases, running the Strength Arcane variation will give us 5% less damage, and in the best of cases, it will give us 2.6% less damage. Do not get me wrong, damage is damage, and 5% can be the difference between defeating an enemy immediately or needing one additional hit. So, if you are just looking for damage numbers, then running the 80 strength build should be your choice. Not only this, but running the 80 strength build with heavy infused weapons also allows you to use buffs and consumables on these weapons to further increase their damage. And finally, running the 80 strength version of this build is cheaper when it comes to leveling up. It takes a total of 9 less levels to build an 80 strength build than it takes to build a 55 strength 45 arcane build. I have to say, it's not looking very good for this quality occult situation, but bear with me because it does have its benefits, and they are good ones. If you choose to build the Strength Arcane version of this character, yes, you will do a bit less damage. Yes, you will not be able to buff your weapons. And yes, you will need 9 additional levels to pull it off. But even after all of this is said, I still believe that this is the strongest choice. Why is that? Well, first and foremost, running the Strength Arcane version of this build will give you access to many fantastic options for bleed application. The Iron Greatsword, for example, is a fantastic option to infuse down the blood path and take advantage of its great scaling and damage. If you like faster weapons, then the Beastman's curved swords are also great for bleed application, and even the Warped Axe has great synergy with this build type. When running a Strength Arcane build, your main priority should continue to be the bleed infusion, but here's the important part. The special quality occult scaling that these weapons have allow us to have an extremely strong option against those enemies that are immune to bleed, for example, the final boss. The Radagon Elden Beast combo is completely immune to bleed, but that is not a problem for our Strength Arcane build because we can pick up the Brick Hammer, go down the occult path, and enjoy maximum damage with our exact same stat spread. The special quality occult scaling gives us one of the most important things that a build can have in Elden Ring: a reliable plan B. Again, we go with bleed, and if bleed does not work, we have quality occult to back us up with full damage potential. But that's not all. Another very important aspect of running Strength Arcane is the fact that we will have access to the very useful Dragon Communion incantations with minimal faith investments. At just 15 faith, we can take advantage of these incantations to support an already strong character that has access to bleed and access to a very strong occult alternative. Overall, while it may be easier to run an 80 strength build, and while it may give us slightly higher AR, the fact of the matter remains that the Strength Arcane variant is stronger due to the access to support systems like incantations and strong status effects. As a big fan of strength weapons and a faithful follower of the Unga Bunga, I was extremely pleased with what my research showed me, because now we can all have a build that has big bleed, big incantation support, and most importantly, the biggest bonk. I really like Strength Arcane. In order to put all of this information together, I want to show you a very quick concept of a possible build that anyone can make to take advantage of quality occult scaling and everything else that we have spoken about. This can be a template that every player can modify to match their own preferences. This is a rune level 150 build that runs 60 vigor, 9 mind, 29 endurance, 55 strength, 9 dexterity, 7 intelligence, 15 faith, and 45 arcane. This stats block will allow you to take full advantage of the bleed status through strength weapons, combining big hits with big bleed damage. It also allows you to take advantage of the quality occult scaling that we have been talking about through the use of any of those 7 specific weapons. In this way, we have a really good secondary option for those enemies that are immune to bleed. On top of this, the build provides incredible survivability through high HP values and high endurance to increase our armor options, which can give us high absorption and poise. Finally, the 15 faith gives us access to basic support incantations to increase our survivability, as well as the basic dragon communion incantations like Dragon Ice and Rotten Breath to provide the build with a variety of status effects. Overall, we have a powerful and versatile build that can give us answer to every problem that Elden Ring's PvE can throw at us. Furthermore, there are some basic changes that anyone can make to suit their playstyle a bit more. Mainly, we can drop some levels of endurance and use them for different things. For example, increase mind if you want to cast more spells, increase dexterity in order to have more weapon options, or increase faith to have more varied incantation choices. As you can see, this build is an easy proof of concept to show you how we can take advantage of the quality occult scaling in combination with all the other options that Strength Arcane gives us to generate a versatile and reliable build option for any player that lives for the Unga Bunga. The best part about Elden Ring is the amount of options it gives and how deep its combat and weapon system goes. Sometimes it does not do a good job of explaining how everything works in detail, but once we do discover new opportunities, they enrich the experience and give players a lot more room to express themselves. In this specific case, the quality occult scaling is very rare and it only affects a very limited number of strength weapons. Personally speaking, this benefits me greatly as I favor strength weapons and big damage hits, and it generates a balance among other dexterity arcane variants that are generally more dominant. After playing with this setup and doing more research into Strength Arcane, I have to say that it is a very strong hybrid and it is very quickly becoming one of my favorite build type. Strength Faith has some serious competition. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope I get to see you on the next one.